Greetings, I'm Ben, and this video is going to show you how to do regression analysis using R. All right, step one for doing regression using R. Create a name for the object that is going to store your model. So we could name it model 1 or mod 1 or M1. We could name it Ben after me. It's an arbitrary name. Let's call it M1. Step two, this little arrow. So this says whatever is on this side of the arrow, I want you to store in M1. And so M1 is the object name. And what we want is a linear model. So LM is the syntax in R to tell it run a linear model. So that's a function of the base stats in R. Then you put the model in parentheses. So, I guess first step, create a name. Second step, make an arrow. Third step, the letters L and M. Fourth step, parentheses. Now, the next thing is your outcome variable, or the variable that you're trying to explain variance in. And for this example, we'll use Donald Trump's feeling thermometer, which is a 0 to 100 measure of how much people like or dislike Donald Trump. So whatever your outcome variable is, you put it there. And this needs to be letter by letter exactly the same as it appears in your data set. So in my data set, I have named this variable capital D, capital T, lowercase f, lowercase t. It has to be exactly like that or you'll get an error. The tilde is this, this little squiggly, this tilde is the symbol that you use to say, okay, I'm now going to list the predictor variables that I want you to use. And then you just type your predictor variables separated with a plus sign for everything that you think explains your outcome. So I'm going to say, I think age, a dummy variable for male, dummy variable for white as in race, partisan ID variable, Democrat or Republican, a variable about people's attitudes about income inequality, a variable about people's attitudes regarding abortion, and the racial resentment scale that they use in the ANES data. So these are all of the independent variables or all of the predictor variables that I'm going to use in my model, and you do have to type them exactly as they appear in your data set. I'll show you why. But after you type the last variable in your model, you put a little comma, then you say data equals, and then you type the name of your data set. So my data set, I have named it ANESP because this is the American National Election Studies pilot data. So that's the name I gave it after I downloaded it. And you run the analysis. Now, before I run it, I'm going to capitalize the A in age. This is not how the variable appears in this data set. It's lowercase. So when I run it this way, it gives me this error, object age not found. That's because it looked in the data set ANESP because I said, hey, use this data set, and it did not find any variable named age with a capital A. In the data set, that variable name is lowercase. So if I fix that, then it runs. Notice when it runs, it doesn't automatically give me an output. It just runs the model. So it ran this analysis here, and it stored it in the object M1. If I want to actually see a summary of the model, I need to ask for a summary of the model. So I type summary, and then the name of the model that I want summarized. So because I named it M1, I type M1 here. If I'd chosen to name it Ben, if this was Ben instead of M1, then I would type Ben here. Ask for the summary, and you shall receive. So this is what you get from the summary command. Notice we have a column for the estimate, the standard error, the t-value, and the p-value. And then it also has these stars to indicate whether the p-value is less than a given cutoff threshold. And it gives you the key for those stars down below. And then each row is one of our independent variables or one of our predictors. The top row is the model intercept. Yeah, this is the data. It's as simple as that. The model statistics are at the bottom. So here's your F statistic for the model and your model degrees of freedom. This is the overall model p-value and your R-square statistic, indicating that the model explains about 59% of variance in how people feel about Donald Trump. It is as simple as that. That's how you do regression in R. Now, one thing that you probably want to know before you click off the video is, how do I get the standardized regression coefficient? So SPSS and a lot of other statistical packages provide a standardized coefficient in addition to the unstandardized coefficient by default. R does not. By default, R gives you the unstandardized coefficient down here, but it doesn't give you the standardized coefficient. But if you install and load the quant-psych package, then once you have that installed and loaded, you can very easily get the standardized coefficients by typing lm.beta and then in parentheses put the name of your model. So because our model is named M1, we put M1 here. If this were named Ben, we would put Ben here. lm.beta is the command. So run that, and it gives you the standardized coefficients for all of your independent variables in the model. That is that. I will record another video shortly showing you how to test some of the assumptions of this kind of model. But if all you want to do is run a regression model, that is what you need to know. Thanks for watching to the end of the video.